Hey everyone, it is showtime with Open Book Broadcast, a live show every single month where I bring on guests and we talk about everything and anything to do with writing and publishing, and sometimes stuff that has nothing to do with writing and publishing, in all honesty. Today, I am super pumped to have with me three fabulous guests that are going to be talking about coming across the finish line when it comes to writing your book. They are all publishers and authors themselves, so they know both sides to the journey, and I'm super pumped what they will share with us today. But as a quick reminder, I am Allie with The Right Place, Right Time. I am a ghostwriter, a developmental editor, and a book coach. And I am also the host of Open Book Broadcast. I'm the founder of The Right Place, Right Time. And we are bringing you this fabulous conversation live to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube this morning. So I want to welcome my guests, Juliet Clark, Jenn T Grace, and Bridgett McGowen-Hawkins to the stage for this morning's conversation. I'm going to start off by formally introducing each one of these fabulous people, and I'm going to also be including some links in the comment section for all of you viewers who are catching us live or catching the replay. In no particular order, because I don't play favorites, I'm going to start by introducing Bridgett McGowen-Hawkins. She's an award-winning international professional speaker, an award-winning author, and the founder and owner of the award-winning Press 49, which is a hybrid publishing company where they get authors published faster than the competition with results authors absolutely love. So the main key phrase here is award-winning. That's all you need to know. She's award-winning. Jenn T Grace is an award-winning author and founder of Publish Your Purpose, a certified B Corp hybrid publishing company dedicated to helping first-time authors succeed. Jenn guides authors through the entire publishing process, ensuring their books align with their business goals, whether it's showcasing expertise or sharing personal stories. She's published nearly 200 diverse titles, contributing to greater representation in literature. Jenn's own works include Publish Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea. Featured in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, Jenn enjoys outdoor activities in Connecticut with her family. So we have another award-winning person on our panel this morning. There's a theme, I can see it. And Juliet Clark has been featured on ABC, NBC, Fox, and Market Watch as a recognized expert in the publishing world. She's a dynamic and sought-after speaker and podcaster who has spent the last 20 years helping authors, coaches, speakers, and small businesses all over the world publish and drive their books to bestsellers, which is as close to award-winning as you can get. Okay. Her podcast, Promote, Profit, Publish, helps entrepreneurs understand how to use great tools in the coaching and small business spaces. Welcome to you all. If this is not like the A-team lineup for an Open Book Broadcast, I don't know what is.
I think we all might be biased, but I will agree with that.
Okay, bias is allowed here in that way. Okay, today we are having a conversation about crossing the finish line. So I think the very first thing that I want us all to kind of talk about, because we all see this in a very different light, is whether or not publishing is actually the finish line when it comes to writing and putting a book out into the world. And that's for anybody to jump on and gnaw.
I feel like we need this voice right now, like that. Yes, I can't do it well. No, it is actually just the beginning. This is where you really get down to how well was your author platform built, and how are you going to use that book to generate revenue in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of times because authors have spent so much time and put so much hard work into the brainstorming, the outlining, the drafting, the editing, the working with the publisher, and the marketing, until when it finally comes to that birthday, the book birthday, publication day, they're just tapped out. So oftentimes I think all that work and blood and sweat and tears, that should be it, if you will, but my goodness, it is not. It's just the start.
I often say that, with the writing process, there's a definitive beginning, middle, and end to the process. Same thing with publishing. There's a beginning, middle, and an end. But when it comes to the marketing, I think, Bridgett, you really hit it, where Authors are just fatigued at the point where the book comes out, and now they are exhausted by having to do anything else. But what I always say is that that's the benefit of books. There is no immediate shelf life. There's not an expiration date that's going to be like, oh, your book is 3 months old, you can't market it anymore. It's no longer valuable, right? Like, that's the beauty of books, is that you really can market them for a long time, which is why just having a solid marketing plan in place can be the thing that allows you to have that little downtime around the birth and then come back and really start to nurture it later.
And you know, Jen, what's fun about marketing never ending and that the publication date being just the start of things is you can use your book to address, maybe it's a current event all of a sudden that crops up. You can use your book to connect to a holiday. You can use your book. It can kind of get new life all along the way as life just happens, if you will, as we just live in this ever-changing world, whether it's an election cycle, whether there's some crazy natural disaster happening or what have you. If your book can connect in some kind of way as to what's on people's minds in that moment, you know, you really have an exciting time for you and your book.
I think the key, though, is making sure that you're not forgetting that you have the book. Right? Because I feel like it's like they cross that one milestone. The book is now published. It's out there. They put a lot of effort, I feel like, into the launch state, right? Because we know that books perform the best in those initial days and weeks. And then it's like, there's this like slope, I feel like, that authors can go on where they dip down, and then while their book might be relevant to the current event or the natural disaster, or you know, the new hit release from Taylor Swift, like whatever it may be, if you're not paying attention to how your book connects and you're not taking advantage of those opportunities, right, then you're missing it altogether. So it's two things. It's not just the perspective of your book is forever, but it's also having your brain constantly turned on that your book exists. How might it be positioned or marketed in today's climate, even if it was published 6 months ago?
Yes. And as Jen said too, this evergreen book, you know, a lot of times when we work with authors, we remind them, if you have a personal development book or an exercise book, start in September, October. What is that plan to get that book out there? Because the beginning of the year is always relevant for people when they're looking for transformation of some sort. And, you know, that January is the time they do it. So really acknowledging and remember that you have to start early for that marketing push, plan, funnel, whatever it is you're building to get it out there in January.
And to add on to that, Juliet, I would say not just the personal development or the self-development types of books, but even the professional development books, because people are thinking new year, new you, both personally and in their careers. So even if you have nonfiction leadership books or industry-specific books that gives people an edge, then I say the same thing goes. Start in September, that last quarter, and ramp up and get people excited about creating this new year, new you with your book.
I see it as like two parallel paths where you have the ramp ups and the timely topics, and especially the new year. But then there's also, to Allie, your statement of like, just don't forget that you even did this, right? Like there's so much blood, sweat, and tears to put into this book that it's just so sad when you see somebody who you meet and they're saying that they do 15 different things. And you're like, I cannot wrap my head around what exactly you do. But if they just led with the book and said, well, hey, I'm Jen, I'm the author of Publish Your Purpose, and this is what I do, it opens the door, and you're always leading with the book. And that's what I try to get our authors to really kind of pay attention to, because when you're always leading with it, it's hard to kind of forget it in the background. And if you did it right, and it's well constructed, it's going to lead to all of the things you want to lead people to anyway. That's why strategy is important.
Yeah. I was on a different call recently with a client and a small publisher, and they had really fabulous advice, you know, because they're thinking about getting her book into more retail, kind of like bookseller retail, not just the online space, but like a lot of other indie stores, Barnes and Noble, you know, whatever. And he was like, if you don't have your book within like the top 3 things that one of these book retailers goes and looks at your social media profile and they can't find it, they assume that your book's not relevant to you. So why will it be relevant to them? And so therefore, like, they're not going to want to pick it up and put it in their stores. And, you know, for whatever reason, like that clicked. Maybe it was just the way that they said it, but yeah, if we go to somebody's page and that book is buried underneath 25 other posts and nobody even knows that you're an author, right? Then that they're not going to just put 2 and 2 that you might have a book, and they're going to go searching for it. And then maybe once they find it, then they're going to think about buying it. You know, you have to be the spokesperson. This is something that Bridgett and I talk about in our recent book, Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One, which is that you are the CEO and you're the main representative of that book. So, you know, you are the spokesperson. You're the only person to tell everybody else in the world that you have a book. The book is not going to do that. The book has no mouth. It has no vocal power, right, to promote itself. It has plenty of power once somebody's engaged with it, but you've got to get people to engage with it first. Okay, now marketing. Why don't you each talk about, you know, what your press does for that particular aspect of things? Because I know one of the things that authors want, right, is they want the one-stop shop. And we're very much in a world, right, where people are niched down and there's different service providers for different things. But always my authors want to know, well, what am I going to get from marketing support from the publisher that I choose? So we'll back into what you actually do for publishing, but what do you do to help the author with that promotional piece that's coming, you know, after the book is published?
Oh, I guess I'll go. Didn't realize we were all going to be silent. So we focus on the author platform building, because that's really the piece that's going to get that audience in place. You're already nurturing them. You're already testing your marketing with them. And then how can you use that book to take those people from there to nurture them into those bigger products and services? So we really focus on that front end build. And unfortunately, I don't know what you guys see, but I see a lot where they haven't done that. They think they do that afterwards, and that audience should be there in advance.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bridgett.
Well, I was going to say, oftentimes I see them feeling like it's just kind of a separate animal, and that I don't want to say they don't want to be involved with it, but they feel like it's better left to the experts to market their book. And one of my catchphrases is, the best marketing tool any book will ever have is the author, him or herself. No matter how much I love your book and am excited to publish it, I'll never be able to talk about your book with the passion and the energy and the excitement that you can. So it feels like there was something else I wanted to say that you triggered in me, Juliet, and maybe it'll come back to me. But it just has to be ongoing. At Press 49, since I have the microphone, at Press 49, we are going to work with the author to think about some non-traditional ways of getting their book seen. You know, maybe they haven't thought about speaking. Maybe they haven't thought about being on podcasts. Maybe they have not thought about testimonials and advanced praise and how that is part of the marketing, because we'll work with you at Press 49 to get those testimonials, get those reviews and advanced praise to go in your book. And then you can use those snippets to say, hey, not only do I think my book is great, but so does this industry leader. So does this person who is a thought leader in this space that my book speaks on. And then we encourage them to use those as, pieces of their marketing campaign, whether it's, social media posts or anything else. But it really starts with the author and ends with the author. As Ali and I talk about in our book, Do Not Write a Book. If you're not talking about it, then nobody's going to know about it. And if nobody knows about it, it's kind of hard for it to get to the checkout stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much that what both of you just said that I feel like is applicable. You know, for us, our focus is on the strategy of the book, because I think a lot of times authors come to the table and they might say, I need to build an author platform, but have absolutely no idea what that means, what that looks like, or how much work is involved. And Bridgett, to your point, I think sometimes I would say they just kind of want to throw money at it to say, all right, I'm just going to hire a social media team to do the thing. But it's like, what are you doing to drive people to the social media, or what are you doing to drive people to your mailing list? And I think sometimes we look at books and we think that all author strategies for every book should be the same, but really we have to really dig deep and see, what is the business model of that author? What products and services do they sell? Are they coaches? Are they consultants? Are they speakers? Like, what does that all look like? And making sure that every decision in the creation of the book is aligned with furthering something, rather than just saying, I'm going to make all of my money back on the sale of the book. That's great, but it's not the sale of the book that's really going to make the impact that I think a lot of people are trying to make. It's really getting in front of larger audiences. Maybe they haven't spoken before and this is their first foray into it, or maybe they've been keynote speakers and making $40,000 each time. Either way, there's so many different strategies, and I think a lot of times authors are just so overwhelmed by the amount of opportunities that they just kind of get frozen and they don't take any action at all. So for us, it's more about kind of being there, holding hands, and being step by step to say, all right, building your social media presence does make sense for you, but it doesn't make sense for the next person. Or focusing on creating speaker material. Maybe that's what makes sense, and maybe it doesn't for somebody else. So there's so much kind of intricacies, I think, to each and every author and their book.
Jenn, you made me think about a question that Allie and I love to pose to prospects, or, people who are actual authors and maybe they're getting ready to do another one. A question that we love to ask is, what do you want your book to do for you? And I don't think I've ever had a time where someone didn't say, that is a really good question. And they really have to think about it, because they really had not spent time before we pose that question to them. What do you want your book to do for you? And then we start thinking about, are you wanting to go down the speaker lane? Are you wanting to offer workshops? Are you wanting to do masterminds? Are you wanting to do book clubs and so on and so forth? Merchandise. I mean, all kinds of different revenue streams from, like you said, Jen, you're not going to make your money from selling that $29.99 book, but thinking about different ways that you can monetize being a published author. That's a big question that we tackle pretty early on in the process at Press 49.
Mm-hmm. To add on to what you guys are saying, a lot of authors don't realize that after your book is published, you're going to get a lot of email from people trying to sell you stuff. So that's why that plan is so important, because now you have a plan and you can go back to a Jenn or a Bridgett or me and say, hey, I just got this thing that's $1,200. Should I do it? And you have that plan in front of you to say, is this really in alignment with the goals that you wanted? Or is this a shiny object that is not going to get you anywhere?
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah.
So true. I can't even, I have one email address that's like I don't even remember why I set it up, in all honesty, but it always has the people who want to sell me the book award program. Just out of the woodwork. And I don't even know how they came across me, how they found me, like what algorithm in the internet space, like told them that I had done other book award programs. And they're not all useless. Like doing some, I think, is a great part of your overall strategy. But for the first time author who doesn't know the space, it is super overwhelming to be like, well, I don't know what's the difference between this one, that one, and the other one, and they all have different fee structures. And I don't know, if they're reputable or not. Their email makes them seem like they are, and then trying to figure out what choices to make. And I feel like if you don't have that strategy, you don't know the answer to the question, what do you want your book to do for you? And you don't have a sounding board, like you're likely to get caught up in a trap, where you're just putting money out and you're not seeing any kind of return, in terms of what that activity now is doing for you and doing for your book.
And I think that's why authors complain about marketing, because they'll say, well, I did all these things and it didn't work for me. And why it didn't work is because it was never aligned with what the goal was. Yeah. So you can throw a lot of money into the abyss with absolutely no return. So I like just kind of being the shepherds for others, to just be like, hey, if I had $1,200 to spend right now, I would do it. I would do this rather than this random solicitation that you received via LinkedIn.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was going to say that highlights that author traffic as well, because or the platform, Because if you're building that and making sure it works in advance, you really don't need all of that stuff at the end, because you're sticking to your plan, you've built it, and you already know it works. So there's that front end work that usually is like a year and a half on the front end, because driving traffic is difficult. For a beginner.
For a beginner, yeah. So let's back up the train. So we've talked about marketing. Marketing is something that you're each incorporating to some extent when you're working with authors. So let's go to the beginning of their track with you. So they're coming to you now. When they come to you, what should they have ready or readily available to move forward with you as a publisher? And I know that people are coming to you in various capacities. Some people are coming to you and they don't have anything. Right? They're like talking to you before they've even written the book. So in a perfect case scenario, what does your author have ready to go when they start to work with you?
For us at Press 49, like you said, some come with just an idea, and that's perfectly fine too. We'll talk through it and get you rocking and rolling, right? But ideally, someone with a completed manuscript and with an idea of an answer to that question. What do you want your book to do for you? That is the ideal client for us. And someone who's not scared to talk about their book, someone who's ready to shout from the mountaintops about their book. One author we published in June of 2024, Dr. Khalifa Oliver. Every time I turn around, I see a new TikTok about her book. I see a new LinkedIn post about her book. I see a video where she's doing a book signing and so on and so forth. And, you know, the publication date of her book has passed, but she's still going strong. So to answer your question, a completed manuscript, the answer to that question, what do you want your book to do for you? And then a fire to talk about it now until the end.
I love that, because it feels like almost identical to what I would say, but I would use the word slightly different, where I'd say completed manuscript, yes, but we have writing programs. So if someone, you know, just has the idea, but beyond the completed manuscript, it's the vision, right? Having some sense of a vision of where they want to go with it. But in my book, Publisher Purpose, like the whole first 4 chapters are around your vision, your mission, purpose, the impact, your goal setting. So if they don't know what that is yet, I give them the book and I'm like, all right, go work this through, then come back. And then the other piece is just motivation, like someone who's really motivated. You said fired up, like someone who's motivated to do something with this, because I feel like all of our companies, we can only serve a certain number of authors in a given time frame. I would much rather put my resources and time and just mental bandwidth behind someone who's just going to be out there doing the thing with their book and really making an impact, rather than someone who's like, I did this because, you know, my ego said I wanted to, but I don't really care if it sells or not. And because there's a lot of people who kind of fall into that camp, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not the publisher for that person if that is where they're coming from.
Yeah. And for me, it's looking at that platform checklist. Or if you have that manuscript, that's great, but are you really ready to launch? Do you have all the pieces in place? So sometimes we have to backtrack a little and go through that checklist and say, you know, do you have an email? Do you have a lead magnet? Can you be out there talking about this right now and be the author of the upcoming book? So just getting all those pieces in place, in addition to that manuscript, making sure that they have what they need for a successful launch.
I have a follow-up question for all of you, but before I do that, I want to go to a question in the comments. We have a viewer who is asking if an indie author can republish their book with a publisher.
I would say absolutely. It would just have to be worth it to the person who went independent. So they'd have to really see the value of what is the collaboration between them as an indie author who already has the book out there and us as a publisher, to say, do you see the value that we're going to provide from a strategic level? Can we see what the return on the investment would be? Because I think a lot of times someone who went indie might have made a very small investment in their book, and maybe the cover wasn't designed as well as it could have been. Maybe they didn't even go through an editing process. And so those things factor in to how well a book will sell. And so if someone doesn't really see the value in working with professionals, I would say probably the answer would be like, you're probably better off just keeping it with yourself and doing what you've been doing. But if you're like, you know what, I really want to up level, I want to like really, really take what I did, which isn't the best reflection of me, but I want to make it the best reflection of me, I think moving over to a publisher is a great choice.
Yeah. And I think for us this year, that's actually the bulk of what we've done is people who want to up level. They're still continuing that education, even though their book is out. And I think that the biggest thing is they realize that they've gone over to Amazon and they've done a hardcover that is not the right hardcover. So they really start to look at, I'm going to write a book, I need this to be really professional. And sometimes, you know, that's their motivation is like Jenn said, I want to up level. I want to get this right. You know, someone said something to me about that's not the right version. Why isn't this the Library of Congress? You know, it's those little things that people nitpick that if you're an indie author, you're going with the best information you have, but you don't really know what's right and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, but in that instance, if you're an indie author, if you've gone through Amazon and you've used their ISBN, not your own ISBN, like how do you untangle from that engine so that you can then come over and work with the publisher? Because I imagine you're going to have to redo, right, the ISBN pieces and the data and the things that are connecting over to the book on the back end. This is like the unsexy stuff that I can't stand, but it's important.
I'd imagine it's the same for Juliet or I, because we've also done books that have been previously published. I think you just need to find a publisher who will help you unravel it. You can't work with someone who's like, go do this. It's like just someone to hold your hand to be like, all right, this is how we unravel. This is how we get new ISBNs. This is how we reassign things. This is how we get them to take the title down. Because there's so much nuance to all of that, which we all know. But just having the right guiding person to help get through it, I think is key.
Okay, Bridgett, did you want to jump in here? I felt like you started to say something.
No, Jenn is spot on. And, you know, I get all excited when you talk about the ISBN.
You can guess which one of us wrote those parts.
Question just for me because she knows what it does for me. But no, Jenn is you know, she hit the target. You really want to work with a publishing professional who knows how to support you in navigating your way through that untangling, because it can really muddy the waters if you don't know what you're doing. You've got 2 or 3 different ISBNs connected to the same book title, and people are wondering, well, is it this? Is it that? What cover? Which edition? All this craziness. So yeah, just find someone and straight up ask them, have you done this before? Number one, may I see, you know, what title you've done this for and how does this work? And just ask all the questions. And if you get that itch, you know, that feeling in your throat or whatever, they don't know what they're doing. Go find somebody else.
Yeah. Here's the other thing too with that is make sure that they share their contract with you. If they did some sort of publishing, like they got minimal assistance, look at that contract, because I've actually looked at some of the contracts where it'll say you own the rights, but they own you for 5 years. There's one particular company that did that for a long time. So make sure before you unravel it that, you know, they're aware of what their contract says and can you do it or can you not for them.
Very good point, Juliet. Very good point.
Lisa, let us know if that answers your question or if you have follow-up questions. The other thing that I'm going to do is share a resource of Jenn's. She has a questions to ask a publisher resource that's freely available for folks. So I will put that in the comments.
Thank you. It speaks to what Juliet was just saying in terms of like, there's a whole series of questions to really ask a publisher to make sure you're getting into the right relationship. Because even between the 3 of us, I feel like what's beautiful about Allie, the community that you've cultivated, is that we all operate with the same type of values and the same moral compass. And so I know that if someone worked with either of these fine ladies, that they'd be in great shape. But someone's got to evaluate like which one of us is going to be the right fit for them. And it really comes down to asking those right, really strategic questions.
Yeah. Lisa says, not to brag, but I have my own ISBN. Thank you all.
Brag.
That's what I said. I said, you brag. You did it the right way. Go, Lisa, go. Kicking ass and taking names. Okay. So to go back to my follow-up question, each one of you said that when an author comes, you want them to have a completed manuscript. And as a writer and developmental editor, completed is a really challenging word, right? So what does completed mean for you in terms of your process, right? Because some publishers, they include the developmental content edit to check the manuscript. Others don't include that. They're expecting that to have already been done. So tell us what completed means in your terms for your press.
For me, it means that I have a raw manuscript and it is at an editor. So we don't do developmental editing at all. We don't do any book development, but I would at least want a rough draft so we can start putting the message together. But it must be at an editor because we don't take books that are unedited by professionals or not professional editors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Ours is like, I often say, like in the words of Anne Lamont, like a shitty first draft, right? Like where ideally that they've worked with somebody a lot of time, but they can bring something that's really still raw because we do developmental editing and we're very intentional about kind of editor matchmaking to find the right editor with the right skill set, the right kind of background that they work on. And then sometimes we get manuscripts and I'm like, yeah, this is a lot happening here. So I'm going to refer you to a handful of ghostwriters and then they might be able to help you or kind of bring in a writing coach to kind of help take it that way. So yeah, completed is a very loose term at PYP.
At Press 49, we do offer developmental editing. We do want you to have that first draft where you feel like, yeah, I feel good about this. But then you'll get those developmental editors' comments, and you can make changes as you see fit. And then even on down, after we've gone through mechanical editing and typesetting and everything, and you look and you think to yourself, I really need to add another, 500 words to explain XYZ for whatever reason. I don't know. Or maybe something happened in the news. We've had that happen with an author, right? You can certainly add to it. But a rough first draft will work at Press 49, and we'll get you in shape with developmental editing and then mechanical and then everything else.
All right, so folks that are catching this live or watching the replay, you need to know the stages of editing so that you can decipher what we're all talking about over here, okay? Not all levels of editing are the same, and they happen at various points along your manuscript's development. So if you're confused about that, you need to start there first so that you have a sense of what you're working through. Okay, so we have a new question in the comments. Do any of your companies do copy/line editing as the service offered?
No.
So just that, but not publishing.
It has to be part of the publishing package. Like we wouldn't just randomly do a one-off editing, like a line or copy edit. It'd have to be part of a publishing package.
Okay.
At Press 49, we'll do one-offs. We'll even do a one-off cover design. We'll do one-off developmental editing. We've done that. So we're perfectly fine with that. Let's say you want to go with your own imprint or another, another company's imprint or what have you. We'll certainly do that. So be sure to reach out to us if you have an interest in receiving developmental editing or mechanical editing or whatever. We do one-offs.
Okay, beautiful.
Oh, and reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want a lovely blog post that breaks down the different types of editing. I will send you that link. You won't have to sign up for anything. I'm not going to email you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I had so much fun writing that blog post or LinkedIn newsletter article, maybe a year and a half ago, that just talks about all those different types of editors, because you'll have authors who say, I need an editor. And then you're like, well, what kind do you need? So let me know if you want that article, everybody.
Awesome. All right. So be reaching out to Bridgett for that resource. But since we're talking about resources with really wonderful content, I want to make sure that I mention Breakthrough Author Magazine, which is something that Juliet spearheads. Juliet, do you want to talk about Breakthrough Author just real quick as an available and free resource to aspiring authors?
Yes, Breakthrough Author Magazine. It's a free subscription. Sign up. Go to breakthroughauthormagazine.com. We drop it into your inbox the first of every month. And it is all about author platform building, publishing, and then what Bridgett was talking about. Do you want to be a speaker? How are you going to get this book out there? So we have a lot of content, podcasting, speaking. We have all sorts of experts that relate that to your book and how you can get out there and sell your book. So we really have all phases in the magazine.
Awesome. Love it.
I just subscribed.
Oh, Jenn's on it. All right. Okay, you don't want to miss these editions each month because they're just packed with really amazing content from a variety of industry professionals, all there to help you, not just with the writing and publishing, but also platform and a bunch of other things. Okay, so let's squeeze in one more question before we wrap up. If you could set the record straight about something in the publishing space for a first-time author, what would it be?
Avoid vanity presses. That would be my biggest thing. Do your homework and look to see if your publisher that you're looking at has a lawsuit pending, because there's a lot of really scammy companies out here that are just taking advantage of first-time authors. So I think that would be and vanity presses are not the same as a hybrid. I feel like that is something to also be known, because I think with a hybrid model, you're paying for services. With a vanity press, you're also paying for services. And I think a lot of times authors get those two things confused, where vanity presses are a very low price point, very minimal services, a lot of times not the best quality. And they are absolutely, there's a high probability they're going to get taken advantage of. And there's a number of different companies, which I won't specifically name, but if you go search them, you'll find them very quickly, which are the bad ones.
Why? I mean, I've lost the plot on this because I feel like vanity press used to be something we heard about a lot, like back when self-publishing first kind of took off. Mm-hmm. And now, like, there's plenty of good ways to do self-publishing. So how does a first-time author really pick apart the difference between vanity and self? Because I feel like the other misconception is like, well, if you were self-publishing, you're vanity publishing, because the idea behind vanity, right, is that it's all about you. And it's like, it's more about the quality, right? The quality output of what's happening here. You're putting in some money, but you're getting a crap product out. But I feel like that's not a very good specific definition. So is there a better way to define this for aspiring authors?
Well, I know for me, when I define vanity press, oftentimes I will indicate that a vanity press will pretty much do whatever you ask, and won't necessarily stop and say, well, I know you really want X on your cover. However, industry standards are, or, best book design cover, parameters suggest X, Y, or Z. Like, they're not going to give you as much expert guidance as a hybrid press might do, or, some other type of publishing company would do. They're just going to, you're the boss, yes, and you are at Press 49 as well. But if you come to us and you really want to have your manuscript written in Lucinda handwriting, I'm going to tell you, well, I love your creativity and want to be involved. That's not happening, and here's why. So with vanity presses, they're just out to just get your book out there, and they may not have a lot of interest in making sure it's adhering to industry standards, that they're creating something that that aligns with the reader experience and what people have come to expect from a book. And your book, you want to be able to hold your book up and hold up a book from one of the big 5 publishing companies and people not be able to tell the difference between the two. I promise you, if a vanity press does your book, people will know the difference.
Because the cover will be done in Chiller and Comic Sans. The other two fonts that just make my skin crawl when you see them on. And I was definitely like a WordPerfect user, I think, at some point in time in my youth. And I was like, ooh, font choices, and now I'm just like, oh, cringe. Like, why did I ever think that those were okay fonts to use on anything? Okay, we totally digressed, and I apologize. But I have had clients ask that specific question about vanity presses. Juliet, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I did want to weigh in on it. So one of the things that I see with authors is they get so excited about the deliverables in these proposals. And this is where you need to really drill down on something a vanity press gives you, or any publisher, and really get in. What does this entail? How does this benefit me? What are your deliverables on this? I have looked over contracts for people who have gone to some of these places, and they're being charged for uploading to Audible. And people think, oh, I'm getting this Audible book. Well, no, they're going to upload it for you and take a piece of that royalty. So really dig down into what is it that you're doing, and what is the benefit, and is this real? I recently saw a proposal that had $2,500 worth of stuff that would never be delivered. It was an art book, and they had given them Audible. Like, how do you read paintings? How do you read drawings? And it was insane. And the guy would not give the money back. He's like, you signed the contract, it's on you. So you really have to dig down and do it in a way that is very moderate, not getting really excited about all of the possibilities you see. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but being realistic about what you're being offered in that proposal. And yes.
And speaking of contracts, Juliet, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and it made me think about how sometimes someone will say, oh, you've got to sign within 2 days or whatever, right? Or the offer goes away or doubles or something like that. Listen, when it comes to those contracts, like Juliet says, you want to drill down and look at it very closely. But also, I'm going to encourage you to have an attorney look at the contract. And if the publishing company is feeling a little uncomfortable, a little fidgety, or they're pressuring you saying that, you've got to sign today, you've got to sign by the end of the week, or, I don't know, the world's going to implode, or I don't know, right? If they're pressuring you like that, really walk away. I mean, you want somebody who says, listen, here's the contract. Take time to review it, even get someone in the legal profession, get an attorney that you trust, whom you trust to review it. So you don't feel like you're having to, become a lawyer yourself to make sense of it and so on. Although our contracts at Press 49 aren't full of legalese, but still, I want you to be comfortable. But don't just sign the first thing that's shoved in your face just for the sake of getting your book done or just because you like the person via Zoom. No, you got to like the contract too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such amazing stuff about contracts and vanity presses. So let's circle back around to Juliet and Bridgett. The one thing you would want to set the record straight about in the publishing space.
Ugh. Everything that I've said today, probably. I had something and it fell out of my head as I was getting all ramped up about contracts. I'm sure it'll I get ramped up about the ISBN from KDP. I get, all geeked out on contracts. Take your time. Take your time. Oh, you know what? Don't think that you have nothing to add to the body of literature or that everything that needs to be said has already been said in your industry. A lot of times people will say, well, what do I know? Well, you've been in your industry for 20 years. Well, who's going to listen to me? Well, you've got a whole host of followers on social media and outside of social media. So I'd like to set the record straight on. Don't feel like everything has already been said. It hasn't been said by you. People have not heard your version or your story. So don't sit on that one and think, there's nothing to add. There's a lot to add.
My misconception, don't get caught up in bestseller campaigns and marketing that they say they're going to have their people come in and write your reviews and do the bestseller. If you're an entrepreneur who's in business, you want a bestseller campaign that is going to be real purchasers, real categories, real buyers, because your reputation is on the line. So, having a fake promotion doesn't benefit your book and it doesn't benefit your business. So do the work and get it done right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's underscore that. Get it done and get it done right.
Allie, I wish we had more time because that's another one that gets me off.
that is true. I just recently had a client that I was talking to, somebody doing a bestseller, and she's like, oh, don't worry, we don't need to drive traffic. I already have the people to do it. And I was like, what? Like, wow. So, and then you're in that position where you have to go back to your client and you don't want to say, hey, you made a really bad choice, but you just kind of, okay, we're going to work around this and get it done right.
Yeah. I mean, my thing would be when it comes to that specific, issue of bestseller campaign status and stuff like that is if you're doing it that way, like you're paying for the bestseller status, basically, in an inauthentic way, it doesn't actually guarantee that your book is good. It doesn't mean that your book has been well written or that it's truly bestseller worthy. it means that the algorithm was kind, or you paid the right people to get the algorithm to be kind, or whatever it is, because there's plenty of books that are beautifully written that don't get bestseller status, right? And we don't think less of them because they don't have that flashy tag. And unfortunately now I think less of the ones who do, because I don't know how they came about the bestseller status and if it's authentic or not. And so I'm like, I don't know, this could be a great book. It could be terrible.
When you think about that, I think it in terms of, are we catering to your ego, or are we serving your business and your clientele?
Yeah, that's a good.
Well said.
Yep. And for more of those sweet beats from Juliet Clark, you can go and connect with her on LinkedIn, and also over at superbrandpublishing.com. And of course, you would also be hearing from Juliet if you go and you sign up for Breakthrough Author Magazine. So let me just throw this into the comments where you can connect with Juliet. All right. And before we wrap up, also head on over to publishyourpurpose.com/ebook, and you can get a copy of Jenn's Publish Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea in the ebook version. And of course, if you go to publishyourpurpose.com, you will connect with Jenn there. And of course, we've also shared a free resource of hers earlier today, the questions to ask a publisher. All right, connect with Jenn. I'm doing this on the fly here. And if you want to hang out with Bridgett and learn all the tips and tricks about speaking and publishing, you're going to want to go and check her out over on LinkedIn, as she mentioned, but definitely go and visit press49.com. And you can actually get a free guide for how to write a book that sells over at Press49. All right. Thank you all for being here with me today. This is always so much fun to chat with you about all the things that really enrage us and impassion us about the work that we do in publishing. And I really thank you all for being here and sharing your expertise. Folks, we hope that you got a lot out of today's conversation. Come back and weigh in on the comments if you have additional questions. Go check out all these fabulous resources and folks online. And we'll be back again next week with another, not next week, next month with another open book broadcast. Bye for now.